Hello students, I am your English teacher Kalyan, and today we are going to see the chapter Nelson Mandela Long Walk to Freedom. As you know, it is from your book First Flight, and in this chapter we will be learning about life of Nelson Mandela. So let's begin this chapter. As you know, this is an autobiography of Nelson Mandela. So obviously he has written it. Here we are going to see how Nelson Mandela faced the challenges in his life. And as you know, he became a famous personality. He was the first black president of South Africa. So in this chapter, we are going to learn about the walks to freedom. That means the Nelson Mandela, how he achieved freedom from apartheid, okay, which was very much prevalent in South Africa. So before Nelson Mandela became the president, this apartheid was very much prevalent in South Africa, and people were actually suffering. They were discriminated, okay, on the basis of their race, caste, creed, and color. So Nelson Mandela fought for the freedom of these people who were actually suffering this apartheid. Now you may be thinking actually what the apartheid is. So apartheid refers to the discrimination between people on the basis of their race. And as you know, it was one of the most brutal societies where dark-skinned people were deprived of their basic rights. So in this lesson, we are going to see how Nelson Mandela worked for the people of his country, of his society, and he tried to bring them up. Okay, he tried to break the barriers of this apartheid and bring freedom to his people, to his nation. Now let us begin the chapter. As you can see in your book, you will find this paragraph in your book. 10th May dawned bright and clear. For the past few days, I had been pleasantly besieged by dignitaries and world leaders who were coming to pay their respects before the inauguration. The inauguration would be the largest gathering ever of international leaders on South African soil. The ceremonies took place in the lovely sandstone amphitheatre formed by the Union Buildings in Pretoria. For decades, this had been the seat of white supremacy, and now it was the site of a rainbow gathering of different colors and nations for the installation of South Africa's first democratic, non-racial government. Now, when you read this paragraph, sometimes you may wonder actually what is written there. So it is nothing very difficult or something extraordinary. Okay, it is just simply, it says that the day was 10th May, okay, and it was the day when Nelson Mandela was going to be sworn in as the first black president of the nation, okay, of the state South Africa. And it was after years of struggle that his anti-racist party came into power. As you know, Nelson Mandela, he belonged to the National Congress of South Africa party, and his party, after a long struggle, it had come into power, okay. So they were going to make a new beginning, okay, new beginning. So Nelson Mandela, since he was the president of the party, so he was going to be sworn in as the first president or first black president of South Africa. That is why the author referred to the day as bright and clear. It was a morning full of hope. Days before this date, many notable personalities started congratulating him for his victory. For the first time in the country's history, so many international leaders came together for their inauguration ceremony. And the ceremony took place in an open circular building made of sandstone consisting of union buildings in the Pretoria city. So Pretoria is a city and there was an amphitheater. Amphitheater means an open theater where this ceremony was going to take place, where Nelson Mandela was going to be sworn in as the president. And so many leaders all over the world, okay, from all around the world, they had come there to greet him or to congratulate him. As I have already said that the nation was actually suffering from apartheid, and many nations, they had actually broken up relationships with South Africa. But now, since this apartheid was going to be rooted out, so now many leaders from many countries, they had come there to support Nelson Mandela and to congratulate him. So on this occasion, on 10th May, okay, the leaders had gathered there to congratulate him in that open theater, in that amphitheater. Now, as we move forward in the chapter, in the second para, we see, on that lovely autumn day, I was accompanied by my daughter Zenani. On the podium, Mr. De Klerk was first sworn in as second deputy president. Then Thabo Mbeki was sworn in as first deputy president. When it was my turn, I pledged to obey and uphold the constitution and to devote myself to the well-being of the republic and its people. Here we see the author was now on this day. He was, author here means simply means Nelson Mandela. He was accompanied by his daughter Zenani. Okay, and there were two vice presidents who were going to be sworn in. So first the second vice president was sworn in, and then the first deputy president or the vice president was sworn in, and finally Nelson Mandela was sworn in as the president of the nation. To the assembled guests and the watching world, I said, today all of us do, by our presence here, confer glory and hope to newborn liberty. Out of the experience of an extraordinary human disaster that lasted too long, must be born a society of which all humanity will be proud. We who were outlaws now so long ago have today been given the rare privilege to be host to the nations of the world on our own soil. We thank all of our distinguished international guests for having come to take possession with the people of our country of what is, after all, a common victory for justice, for peace, for human dignity. Now here, Nelson Mandela, in this paragraph, he just tries to explain, he just mentions some parts of his speech where he said that everyone by his presence was giving rise to hope for a new beginning. That means people, they had gathered there, and it was actually a large gathering. So that showed that people really wanted freedom from this apartheid. Now the previous rulers were discriminatory. Previous rulers here simply means the white people who were governing the country. Okay, they were actually discriminatory, and that discrimination lasted for long. Okay, it lasted for long. Now they have been given opportunity to rule the country. Here, who have been given? ANC. ANC means African National Congress. Okay, that's the name of the party which Nelson Mandela belonged to. So they were given the chance to rule the country. Now, Nelson Mandela says that he was very glad to host a ceremony with the presence of global leaders because so many leaders from many countries they had gathered there, and it was an achievement in itself. There was a time when South Africa, for practicing apartheid, lost all its international political relationships. As I had told earlier, that because of this practice, the apartheid practice, most of the countries they had already broken off their relationships with this country, South Africa. But now they want to mend it. They want to have a new beginning. So the many leaders from different countries they had come there. Now, when there is no segregation on the basis of race and gender, other nations are happy to have healthy democratic relationships. And finally, they have come to power and they pledged to make everyone proud. He thanked everyone, especially the international leaders, for joining them in celebrating their achievement, which is a step towards an equal society where every human will be treated fairly. So now, Nelson Mandela, he thanks the world leaders who had come from different countries, because now Nelson Mandela knew that they were going to have a new country with a new government and with a new rules and regulations. Next paragraph you will find Nelson Mandela writes, "We have at last achieved our political emancipation. We pledge ourselves to liberate all our people from the continuing bondage of poverty, deprivation, suffering, gender and other discrimination. Never, never and never again shall it be that this beautiful land will again experience the oppression of one by another. The sun shall never set on so glorious a human achievement. Let freedom reign. God bless Africa." So in this para, Nelson Mandela says, or he mentions, that after a great struggle, they have finally achieved political freedom. Political emancipation means political freedom, and his government promised to free everyone of the still existing poverty, hardship and inequalities of all kinds, along with assuring everyone of a country where no community will be considered inferior. He then exclaims that freedom should rule and may God shower his blessings on their land. So now Nelson Mandela is trying to assure the people that there will be no more apartheid, there will be no more discrimination based on caste, creed, gender and color. Okay, so he's trying to assure everyone, even his own people, and he's also trying to assure the world leaders who have come from different countries. A few moments later, we all lifted our eyes in awe as a spectacular array of South African jets, helicopters and troop carriers rolled in perfect formation over the Union buildings. It was not only a display of pinpoint precision and military force, but a demonstration of the military's loyalty to democracy, to a new government that had been freely and fairly elected. Only moments before, the highest generals of the South African Defence Force and Police, their chests bedecked with ribbons and medals from days gone by, saluted me and pledged their loyalty. I was not unmindful of the fact that not so many years before they would not have saluted but arrested me. Finally, a chevron of Impala jets left a smoke trail of the black, red, green, blue and gold of the new South African flag. Here in this paragraph, Nelson Mandela says, just after the newly elected president's address to the audience, an impressive arrangement of fighter jets, helicopters and soldier transporters raised everyone's heads up in the sky, because there was going to be an air show. It symbolized perfection as well as military's respect and obedience towards the free country. That means now the military was under his control and military was going to obey the newly elected president. The high commanders who have won medals for their bravery also saluted and promised their loyalty. So now all the military officials, the higher officials, they saluted Nelson Mandela and they promised their loyalty to him. Mandela mentions that he was well aware that these commanders who were now saluting him would have arrested him under the previous rule, as during the oppressive white supremacy he was considered to be a criminal. Now Nelson Mandela is just recalling the days. Earlier, if he would have been there, then these military rulers or the military officials who were now saluting him, all those officials, they would have arrested him when the white people they were ruling, because that time Nelson Mandela was considered to be a criminal, so they would have certainly arrested him. But now the same officials, they are saluting him. Why? Because of his post. Now he has become the president. So the air show finally ended by making of the South African flag in the sky from smoke beneath the jets. So now, as I told you, the jets, now the air show was over and the jets, they had made a perfect formation. They had actually made the national flag of South Africa by emitting different colors of smoke in the sky. Next paragraph, you will find the day was symbolized for me by the playing of our two national anthems and the vision of whites singing Noxie Sikelil and Africa and blacks singing Die Stem, the old anthem of the Republic. Although that day neither group knew the lyrics of the anthem they once despised, they would soon know the words by heart. Here the author remembers the day as the playing of two national anthems of the country. So on that day, on 10th May, Nelson Mandela, he remembers that day two national anthems were played, one of the whites and the other that of the blacks. On that day, no one knew the wordings of the anthem of the blacks, but Mandela was confident that everyone would soon learn this anthem that they once hated. So now, as we know, in our country, we have only one national anthem. But there in South Africa, they had two national anthems. One was sung by the white people and another one was sung by the black people. So now naturally the white people, they did not know the wordings or the words of the national anthem of the black people. But now Nelson Mandela was very much sure that now very soon they will know both the national anthems by heart. Further, Nelson Mandela says, on the day of the inauguration, I was overwhelmed with a sense of history. In the first decade of the 20th century, a few years after the bitter Anglo-Boer War and before my own birth, the white-skinned people of South Africa patched up their differences and erected a system of racial domination against the dark-skinned peoples of their own land. The structure they created formed the basis of one of the harshest, most inhuman societies of the world has ever known. Now, in the last decade of the 20th century and my own 8th decades as a man, that system had been overturned forever and replaced by one that recognized the rights of and freedoms of all peoples, regardless of the color of their skin. Now here, in this stanza or in this paragraph, we find on the day of the inaugural ceremony, the author here, that means Nelson Mandela, he was remembering the days of past when this whole system of apartheid emerged, and it resulted in inequality and inferior treatment of dark-skinned people. That means the dark-skinned people, they were not treated well. They were not treated equally. They were deprived of their basic fundamental rights, and as a result, one of the world's most brutal and inhuman society was born. This began even before he was born. So he says even before Nelson Mandela was born, that apartheid had already, it was existing. Okay, it was already existing. It had already begun. This system created an atmosphere of extreme cruelty and injustice for a particular part of the community. Now, when he is in his 8th decade, that means now Nelson Mandela was 80 years old, as a man, he along with countless others have changed this entire system that treats humans as humans irrespective of their color, caste, gender or age. So now he says that now he has changed that system. He has now turned out, or he has just uprooted that or eradicated the apartheid system. In the next paragraph, Nelson Mandela says that they had come about through the unimaginable sacrifices of thousands of my people, people whose suffering and courage can never be counted or repaid. I felt that day, as I have on so many other days, that I was simply the sum of all those African patriots who had gone before me. That long and novel line ended and now began again with me. I was pained that I was not able to thank them and that they were not able to see what their sacrifices had wrought. Here, Nelson Mandela further he says that this equal and free country was a result of sacrifices of countless other men and women who have fought all their lives for this day, as we know, for our nation also, for the freedom struggle. As we know, so many patriots, they had given up their lives. So in the same way, in South Africa also, so many men and women, they had fought for this day. And the author wishes if he could thank them all, but unfortunately, they didn't live to see the result of their courage. Okay, so many people, men and women, they had fought for this day, but today they were not alive. Nelson Mandela wished that he could thank them, but unfortunately, they were all dead. They were not alive. Nelson Mandela gathered his courage and power from all these people and thus wishes to make them proud. Now, the policy of apartheid created a deep and lasting wound in my country and my people. All of us will spend many years, if not generations, recovering from the profound hurt. But the decades of oppression and brutality had another unintended effect, and that was that it produced the Oliver Tambo, the Walter Sislos, the Chief Lutlus, the Yusuf Dadus and Bram Fishers, the Robert Sobosquets of our time, men of such extraordinary courage, wisdom and generosity that their like may never be known again. Perhaps it requires such depths of oppression to create such heights of character. My country is rich in the minerals and germs that lie beneath its soil, but I have always known that its greatest wealth is its people, finer and truer than the purest diamonds. So, Nelson Mandela says the oppression policy scared many people and it will take a long time for them to move on. The author also mentions that this hard time had its negative impacts, but it also exposed a lot of strong and courageous men who stood up and raised their voice. So he has mentioned so many names, okay, Walter Sislos, Oliver Tambo, Chief Lutlu, and Yusuf Dadis, Bam Fizer, all these names he has mentioned, they were all freedom fighters, okay, and they fought courageously. So he says because of this apartheid, because of this oppression, these people, they emerged. Thus, it required that level of unjust treatment to produce such great heroes. South Africa, he says, is rich in minerals and gems, but its greatest strength lies in its people. Though it has got a lot of minerals and gems, but still Nelson Mandela says that its richness lies in its people. It is from these comrades in the struggle that I learned the meaning of courage. Time and again, I have seen men and women risk and give their lives for an idea. I have seen men stand up to attacks and torture without breaking, showing a strength and resilience that defies the imagination. I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers the fear. So, according to Nelson Mandela, okay, he gained strength to stand against the wrong from all the great nationalists he mentioned above. So many names he had mentioned, who have even risked their lives for freedom and tolerated ill treatment, but never stopped fighting. So they always continued to fight for freedom. He learned that courage didn't mean the absence of fear. So now, how does he define courage? He says courage is not the absence of fear, but the ability to overcome fear. That is called courage. The man who overcomes his fear is called brave or courageous. No one is born hating another person because of the color of his skin, or his background, or his religion. People must learn to hate, and if they can learn to hate, they can be taught to love. For love comes more naturally to the human heart than its opposite. Even in the grimmest times in prison, when my comrades and I were pushed to our limits, I would see a glimmer of humanity in one of the guards, perhaps just for a second. But it was enough to reassure me and keep me going. Man's goodness is a flame that can be hidden but never extinguished. In this paragraph, he tries to explain, tries to say that one is taught by its society to hate humans because of their skin color, age, gender, and religion. So, when a child is born, he does not know what love is, he does not know what hatred is. But when he is brought up in the society, he learns to hate his fellow humans. Now, no one is inborn with hatred. The author's idea is that if people can be taught hatred, they can also be taught love and brotherhood. So now here Nelson Mandela says, if people can learn how to hate, then they can also learn to love others. Okay? Because that is more natural. In their most testing times in prison, when they were being treated brutally, Mandela would see a pinch of humanity and kindness in one of the guards, and that was enough to keep him going. So Nelson Mandela mentions, he just quotes, just gives an example. He says when he was arrested and he was kept in the prison, the guards, they were very, very inhuman, they were very, very brutal to them, and they treated them brutally. But there were some guards who were they showed some humanity, and they also showed some kindness to them, and that kept him going. He believes that goodness in human beings can be suppressed but never eliminated. That means that every man is, or every human being is good. That goodness is in men and women. But sometimes what happens, we keep it suppressed, but it cannot be totally eliminated. It is always present there. Only thing is that we have to bring it out. We have to bring it out. In life, every man has twin obligations. Obligations to his family, to his parents, to his wife and children, and he has an obligation to his people, his community, his country. In a civil and humane society, each man is able to fulfill those obligations according to his own inclinations and abilities. But in a country like South Africa, it was almost impossible for a man of my birth and color to fulfill both of those obligations. In South Africa, a man of color who attempted to live as a human being was punished and isolated. In South Africa, a man who tried to fulfill his duty to his people was inevitably ripped from his family and his home and was forced to live a life apart, a twilight existence of secrecy and rebellion. I did not in the beginning choose to place my people above my family, but in attempting to serve my people, I found that I was prevented from fulfilling my obligations as a son, a brother, a father, and a husband. Now, in this paragraph, Nelson Mandela, he just says a very beautiful thing. So, according to him, every human being has its responsibility towards the family and as well as the society. And generally, under normal circumstances, a person can maintain the balance between the two. Okay, but in countries like South Africa, it was never so easy. So it was not easy for Nelson Mandela. When a person of color would come up for his society, he would be arrested and taken away from his family, thus keeping them from fulfilling both responsibilities. Now you can just see Nelson Mandela, as he was fighting for freedom from apartheid, many times he was arrested, he was put in the prison, and he was kept away from his family. So now he was not able to fulfill his duties towards his family as well as towards his society. In the beginning, Mandela did not put his people over his family. That means, as a normal human being, he also he was just thinking about his family, okay, and he never thought of the society. But it was only later when he realized that in order to be there for his people, he was compromising his duties towards his own family. But later on, he realized that he had to work for the society. And when he worked for the society, then he had to compromise with his duties, which was towards his own family, towards his family members. I was not born with a hunger to be free. I was born free, free in every way that I could know, free to run in the fields near my mother's hut, free to swim in the clear stream that ran through my village, free to roast mealies under the stars and ride the broad backs of slow-moving bulls. As long as I obeyed my father and abided by the customs of my tribe, I was not troubled by the laws of man or God. It was only when I began to learn that my boyhood freedom was an illusion, when I discovered as a young man that my freedom had already been taken from me, that I began to hunger for it. At first, as a student, I wanted freedom only for myself, the transitory freedoms of being able to stay out at night, read what I pleased, and go where I chose. Later, as a young man in Johannesburg, I yearned for the basic and honorable freedom of achieving my potential, of earning my keep, of marrying and having a family, the freedom not to be obstructed in a lawful life. So in this para, we say, the author did not have the plan to stand against the apartheid system early in life. As I told you, as a young boy, he never thought of standing against the apartheid. He lived his childhood like any normal child in South Africa, and he only had to follow the rules set up by his father or the customs of his tribe. So whatever the rules and regulations, the customs the tribe had set up, so he just abided by those rules and norms and the regulations, and he was living a peaceful life. There was no trouble at all. As soon as he grew up and began to learn the facts as to how people of color are treated, he decided to stand against it. But now as he grew up, he saw that his people, the dark-skinned people, they were treated brutally, and then he decided to stand for them. It had this urge for freedom from inside, earlier just for himself, staying out at night, etc., and later for having a basic life not just for himself but for everyone. In Johannesburg, they had to struggle for having a peaceful marriage, family, and basic amenities which everyone has access to where law and order exists. So, now he had got everything, but as a young boy, when he saw that his own people they were actually ill treated, then only he decided to fight against this apartheid, and he just wanted to eradicate it, okay, uproot it. But then I slowly saw that not only was I not free, but my brothers and sisters were not free. I saw that it was not just my freedom that was curtailed, but the freedom of everyone who looked like I did. That is when I joined the African National Congress, and that is when the hunger for my own freedom became the greater hunger for the freedom of my people. It was this desire for the freedom of my people to live their lives with dignity and self-respect that animated my life, that transformed a frightened young man into a bold one, that drove a law-abiding attorney to become a criminal, and turned a family-loving husband into a man without a home, that forced a life-loving man to live like a monk. I am not more virtuous or self-sacrificing than the next man, but I found that I could not even enjoy the poor and limited freedoms I was allowed when I knew my people were not free. Freedom is invisible. The chains on any one of my people were the chains on all of them. The chains on all my people were the chains on me. Nelson Mandela, here in this paragraph, he just tries to say that when he joined the African National Congress, then only he realized that it was not only him whose basic rights were snatched away, but of all those who looked like him. That means all those black people, their rights were also snatched away. He had his fire inside him to free his people from the injustice. It was his fire that changed the author completely as a man, from being scared to brave, a lawyer to the one breaking the law, a family man to a man without a home, and a lively man into being a monk. That means he had sacrificed a lot. It was the knowledge that he and his people have restricted freedom that made him into a selfless man as opposed to before. So earlier he was a selfish man. He was just thinking about himself. But when he saw the conditions of his own people, then only he became a selfless man. According to him, freedom cannot be divided, and snatching it away from some was equivalent to taking it away from everyone, and that meant taking it away from the author. That means freedom was only given to the white people. It was not given to the black people. That's why he says that freedom cannot be divided. It should be equal. And suppose the freedom was snatched away from a black people or a black person, that means it was snatched away from all the people who were black. And Nelson Mandela, being a black man, that freedom was also snatched away from him. So he mentions that the need to free the oppressor is as high as that of the oppressed, because the oppressor is bounded by the shackles of hatred. He has the weight of all the people who he has tormented, for he carries the curses of all of their families for taking away someone else's freedom and making them a prisoner. He becomes a prisoner of biasness. Thus he is robbed of his humanity and need to be freed. So now here I hope you have understood this chapter, And if you have understood this chapter, then please write it in the comment, and just stay tuned for the next chapter. Very soon I will be giving you the explanation of the next chapter. So stay tuned, and if you have not subscribed, if you are new to my channel, then subscribe to my channel so that every now and then you can get the chapters explained, and you can learn it well, and you can understand the chapter in a better way. So for today, I think that's all. So see you in the next video with the next chapter. Thank you very much.